You ever seen a soldier in war? I'm talking about the real ones. The ones in the trenches, covered in dirt, blood, sweat, pushing forward, fighting like dogs, because that's all they know. They move when they're told, shoot when they're told, kill when they're told. And you know what happens to them when the war is over? They get a pat on the back, a medal if they're lucky, and then they're forgotten, replaced. Because soldiers, they do the dirty work, but they don't call the shots. They ain't the ones drawing the maps, setting the traps, deciding who wins and who loses. No, that's the general's job. The general? You don't run into the bullets. Don't fight battles, you don't have to. He moves the pieces, he controls the board, he plays to win. And that's the difference between most of you and the men who run the world. You work like a soldier, but you don't think like a general. You sweat, you grind, you bleed for somebody else's war, and in the end, what do you got? Another day, another dollar, another piece of your life wasted on somebody else's plan. You're in the trenches fighting a war you don't even understand, you don't ask why, you don't ask what it's for, you just march forward like a good little grunt. And they love you for it, you know? They love how easy you make it for them. You think just because you work harder than the next guy that you're gonna win? No, that just makes it a perfect pawn. And pawns, they go first. They die first. And nobody remembers their names. You wanna win in this world? You better wake up. You better stop being the one sweating and start being the one pulling the strings. You gotta work like a soldier, but think like a general. That means knowing when to fight, when to step back, when to strike, and when to let somebody else take the fall. It means you stop throwing yourself at every opportunity like a starving dog and start picking your battles like a king. Because that's what real power is. It ain't just muscle, it ain't just sweat, it's strategy. It's knowing where to put your effort so that every move you make gets you closer to the top. But nah, most people, they don't get it. They hear work hard and they think that's all there is. They break their backs day in, day out, thinking someday it'll pay off, but it don't. You know why? Because they ain't working for themselves. They ain't thinking beyond the next paycheck, the next step, the next order. They let somebody else set the rules, make the decisions, call the shots. That's why they never make it. Because they never stop to ask the only question that matters. Who is really in control here? Let me tell you something. If you ain't in control, you'll be in control. Simple as that. You're either the one giving orders or you're the one taking them. You're either running the game or you're getting played. And most of you, you're getting played and you don't even know it. You work like a mule, but you don't got a plan. You hustle, but you don't got an end game. And that's why you stay losing. That's why you see the same faces at the top and the same suckers stuck at the bottom, breaking their backs, thinking one day it'll be different. It won't, unless you change the way you think. Unless you start playing the game like it was meant to be played. Look around. The real winners in this world, they ain't the hardest workers. They ain't the ones pulling 12-hour shifts, grinding their bones to dust. Number. They're the ones who figured out how to make the game work for them. They're the ones who learn to control the board. They ain't just soldiers, they're generals. They move in silence. They make power plays while you're too busy breaking a sweat. They let other people do the running, the chasing, the fighting, while they sit back and collect the rewards. And that ain't luck. That ain't coincidence. That's how the world is built. There are players. And there are pawns. And right now, you're still a pawn. But you don't have to be. That's the thing. You don't have to be the one taking the hits. You don't have to be the one waiting for orders, following somebody else's blueprint, building somebody else's dream. You can be the one making the calls. You can be the one drawing the maps. But first, you gotta stop thinking like a goddamn worker and start thinking like a boss. You gotta stop playing small, stop waiting for permission, stop letting other people set the terms of your life. You gotta start making moves for yourself, and you gotta do it smart. Because let me tell you, working hard, that's the bare minimum. That's entry level. Any idiot can sweat. Any fool can put in the hours. But working smart, that's where the real power is. That's where you separate the kings from the pawns. The ones who make it from the ones who get used. You want to be the man? You want to be the one they answer to? Then you gotta start thinking 10 steps ahead. You gotta see the game before it's played. You gotta be the one making the rules, not just following them. And yeah, it's gonna take time. It ain't gonna happen overnight. You ain't gonna go from pawn to king in a day. But every move you make, every step you take towards taking control, that's another brick in your empire. That's another piece of the puzzle coming together. And one day when the dust settles, when the war is over, you ain't gonna be the soldier left behind, forgotten in the dirt. You're gonna be the one standing on top, looking down, watching all the ones who never figured it out, still breaking their backs for nothing. So what's it gonna be, Chico? You're gonna keep grinding, keep sweating, keep fighting somebody else's war? Or you're gonna wake up and start playing like a general? Because, let me tell you something, this war don't wait for you. It don't give second chances. It don't care if you work hard. It only cares if you win. So, if you wanna win, you better start thinking different. You better start moving different. You better start playing for keeps. Because in the end, there ain't no prizes for the hardest worker. There's only prizes for the smartest one. And that better be you. You think power is about working harder? That's what they want everyone to believe. They want people breaking their backs, waking up before the sun, working until their hands bleed, just to scrape by. They sell that dream. They tell people if they work hard enough, long enough, they'll make it. But guess what? Most die tired, broke, forgotten. Because the truth is, hard work don't mean nothing if it ain't going in the right direction. If it ain't building something. If it ain't taking over. That's what separates the ones who own the game from the ones who just play in it. The ones who get played, they waste years grinding for someone else. They run around doing the dirty work, pushing harder than anybody, but they never get past the ground floor. Why? Because they never stop to look up, never stop to think about the bigger picture, never ask themselves, who is really winning here? Look at the biggest names in the world, the richest, the most powerful, the ones sitting in the tallest buildings, making the decisions, pulling the strings. You think they got there because they worked the hardest? You think they spend their days sweating in the sun, putting in long hours, waiting for someone to notice? Number, they built something. They found angles, they saw what the rest of the world was too blind to see, and then they took it. That's what working smart is. It ain't about throwing yourself at the grind until you collapse. It's about knowing where to put the effort. Knowing what moves to make, what pieces to sacrifice, when to go all in and when to step back and let someone else take the hit. It's about seeing the war before it starts, knowing where the battlefields are, knowing where the weak spots are, and striking before anybody even knows they're in a fight. Most people, they don't know how to do that. They're too busy running around, chasing scraps, getting distracted by every little thing. They never take control. They never stop being the ones who wait for orders. They think they're moving forward, but all they're really doing is running in circles, waiting for the next command, the next paycheck, the next false promise. That's not power. That's slavery with a paycheck. The ones who win, they move different. They think different. They use every ounce of effort to push themselves forward, not just keep themselves busy. They make sure every drop of sweat means something. Every move has a purpose. Every step takes them closer to something bigger. And yeah, some people get lucky. Some people stumble into money, into power. But the ones who keep it, the ones who hold on to it, grow it, build an empire that lasts, those ain't the ones who relied on luck. Those are the ones who played the game like it was meant to be played. But people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that their effort is wasted. That all those hours they put in, all that time they spend grinding, it don't mean a thing if they ain't got a strategy. They want to believe that just because they worked harder than the next guy, they deserve to win. Deserve? The world don't give a damn what anybody deserves. The world takes. It don't hand out prizes for effort. It rewards the ones who take control. The ones who don't just work, but plan. The ones who don't just fight, but think. The ones who ain't afraid to step up, to take what's theirs, to put themselves in a position where nobody can tell them what to do, where nobody holds them by the leash and says work harder, work longer, and maybe, just maybe, something good will come. That ain't how it works. The ones who wait for their chance never get it. The ones who wait for success to come knocking stay waiting until the day they die, because it don't come. Not to the ones grinding with no plan, not to the ones playing somebody else's game. So, what's the move? How does somebody stop being just another worker, just another soldier marching in a war they don't even understand? It starts with taking control. It starts with seeing the game for what it is. It starts with realizing that the world don't move for the hardest workers, it moves for the ones who know how to use their work to build something bigger than themselves. It means looking at every minute, every hour, every ounce of energy being spent and asking, is this pushing things forward? Or is this just another day wasted? It means understanding that the goal ain't just to get by, ain't just to survive, it's to win. It's to be the one calling the shots, setting the rules, sitting at the table while everybody else fights for scraps. It means learning when to take risks, when to hold back, when to speak, when to stay silent, when to strike, and when to let someone else make the first move. Because real power, it ain't about force. It ain't about throwing punches until there's nothing left. It's about control. It's about moving like a general, not just another soldier on the battlefield waiting for the next command. And it ain't easy. That's why most people never do it. That's why most people stay stuck. They don't want to think. They don't want to change. They don't want to admit that they spend years working the wrong way, chasing the wrong things, following the wrong people. They don't want to face the truth that maybe, just maybe, all that effort meant nothing. But the ones who do, the ones who wake up, who see the game, who step out of the line and start making their own moves, those are the ones who make it. Those are the ones who take power instead of waiting for it to be handed to them. Those are the ones who build something that lasts. Because at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, there ain't no prizes for the ones who work the hardest. There ain't no trophies for the ones who ran themselves into the ground for somebody else's dream. There's only winners and losers. And the difference between them, it ain't just how hard they worked, it's how smart they played the game. The world don't stop to check who worked the hardest. It don't care who broke their back the most, who stayed up the latest, who bled the most for a dream that was never theirs to begin with. The world only watches one thing: who made it, who got to the top, who walked into a room and had every head turn without saying a word. That's the only thing that matters. Not the struggle, not the effort, the outcome. And that's what too many people don't get. They chase the grind like it's the prize itself. Like just because they struggled, because they suffered, they're owed something. Like the world is gonna look down one day and say, you know what, you earned it. But that day don't come, it never does. Because the only thing that earns power is power. The only thing that brings success is making the right moves at the right time. Some people wake up and realize this. They stop looking at work as a thing they have to do and start looking at it as a weapon. A tool, something to be used to get somewhere. They stop thinking like workers and start thinking like rulers. They stop spending time proving how hard they can work and start spending time proving how smart they can play. It's a shift most people never make. They can't. Because to do that, first they have to admit they've been wasting time. They'd have to admit that all those years of effort, all those nights spent grinding, they didn't mean nothing because they weren't part of a bigger plan. And nobody wants to admit that. Nobody wants to face the fact that they got played, that they let themselves get used. That all that time they thought they were building something, but really they were just another piece in somebody else's puzzle. But the ones who do admit it, the ones who swallow that truth and use it, they're the ones who get out. They're the ones who step up and start making moves that count. Because they stop thinking about just working and start thinking about leverage. How to use what they do to get something bigger. How to turn effort into control, control into power, power into something permanent. That's what it's really about. It ain't just about getting rich. Ain't just about making money, having more than the next guy, flashing cash like it means something. That's just part of the game. The real prize is power. The ability to move without asking, to take without begging, to walk into any place, any situation, and have the final say. And that don't come from working hard. That don't come from grinding longer than everybody else. That comes from thinking ahead, from seeing the board, from understanding how to make moves that put other people in a position where they got no choice but to follow. Some people never figure that out. They get stuck chasing a dream that don't belong to them. They spend years believing that if they just keep their head down and push forward, something good is gonna happen. But the only thing that happens to people who don't think is that they get used. That's the difference between a soldier and a general. The soldier fights. The soldier takes orders. The soldier gives everything and gets nothing back except a paycheck and a promise that maybe, someday, if he survives, he'll be rewarded. The general don't fight unless he has to. The general don't risk nothing unless it's necessary. The general moves people like chess pieces, sets the board the way he wants, controls the war without ever stepping into the trenches. And when it's all over, when the dust settles, the soldier is left with scars and stories, and the general is left with everything. Some people hear that and they don't like it. They don't want to believe that's how the world works. They want to believe that good things come to those who suffer the most. That effort alone is enough to win. But effort without direction is like running blindfolded. It don't matter how fast someone moves if they ain't got no idea where they're going. The ones who win, they move with purpose. They don't just work, they work with a reason. Every step, every deal, every conversation, every risk, it all leads somewhere. And if it don't, then it ain't worth the time. That's what separates the ones who make it from the ones who don't. The ones who make it, they don't do anything without a reason. They don't waste moves, they don't waste energy. They don't let themselves get caught up in distractions, in petty fights, in things that don't push them forward. They don't work just to work. They work to own, to build, to dominate. And that takes more than just strength. It takes patience. It takes knowing when to shut up and when to speak, when to strike and when to wait, when to walk away from something that don't serve the bigger goal, even when it feels like a win in the moment. Most people don't have that kind of discipline. They want everything now. They want to show the world how hard they can go, how much they can take, how much they can suffer. They burn themselves out before they ever get anywhere. They chase quick wins, cheap victories, things that make them feel like they're moving forward when really they ain't going nowhere. That's why the world is filled with people who tried, people who almost made it, people who worked harder than anybody else but still ended up with nothing. Because effort without intelligence is just wasted motion. The ones who make it, they don't almost win, they don't try, they don't get close, they take, they execute. They make the right moves at the right time, and when it's done, they ain't looking back, they ain't explaining themselves, they ain't apologizing. Because by the time people realize what happened, it's already too late. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it's always gonna be. The only question left is who's playing the game and who's getting played. Who's thinking ahead? And who's just running in place? Who's moving like a soldier, waiting for orders? And who's thinking like a general, making the calls? Because at the end of the day, the war don't remember effort. It don't remember struggle. It don't remember the ones who worked the hardest but never made it. It remembers winners. It remembers the ones who took what they wanted and never looked back. Most people don't understand how the game really works. They think life is fair, that if they just keep their heads down, stay loyal, work like dogs, eventually something good will happen. But that's not how it goes. The world ain't fair, it never was. It don't reward the hardest worker, it rewards the smartest one. The one who knows when to play dumb and when to play ruthless. The one who ain't out here chasing after scraps like a starving dog, but sitting back, watching, waiting for the right moment to take what actually matters. Too many people waste their time fighting the wrong fights. Wasting energy on battles that don't mean nothing in the long run. They chase after respect from people who don't matter. They fight to prove themselves to people who ain't even watching. They let their emotions pull them in every direction until they're exhausted, frustrated, empty. That's what keeps them stuck. That's what keeps them broke. No discipline, no vision, no plan. Just another pawn moving when somebody else tells them to move. The ones at the top don't play that game. They don't care about proving anything. They don't waste time explaining themselves, defending themselves, begging for approval. They move in silence, strike when it counts, disappear when it don't. Every step they take is calculated. Every risk is measured. Every action has a reason. That's what it means to think like a general. A general don't rush into war just because he's angry. He don't waste bullets just to make noise. He don't burn down villages just to prove a point. He waits, he studies. He learns his enemies better than they know themselves. He knows exactly where to strike to get the most damage with the least effort. And when he does, it ain't emotional, it ain't personal. It's just business, just another step in the game. That's how the real winners move. They don't fight over crumbs. They don't throw themselves into every little battle just because their ego tells them to. They see the big picture. They know what's worth their time and what ain't. They know how to control themselves, how to keep their emotions in check, how to walk away from distractions. That's what makes them dangerous. That's what makes them unstoppable. But most people, they ain't built for that. They get caught up in pride. They get caught up in proving they're tough, proving they won't back down, proving they deserve respect. But respect don't pay bills. Pride don't build empires. The ones who make it ain't the ones who bark the loudest, throw the biggest punches, or show the most hustle. They're the ones who know when to shut up and when to move. The ones who know how to make other people work for them. The ones who know how to set the game up so that no matter what happens, they win. Some people hear that and they get mad. They don't want to believe it. They want to believe that being a good worker is enough, that effort alone is going to take them somewhere. But effort alone don't mean nothing if it ain't going in the right direction. Running fast don't matter if the road leads to a dead end. That's why so many people stay losing. They do the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. They keep putting in hours for somebody else's dream. They keep following orders, hoping one day they'll be the ones giving them. But it don't work like that. Nobody hands out power. Nobody passes the torch. Power gets taken. The ones who wait for permission stay waiting until the day they die. The smart ones figure that out early. They learn how to watch, how to study, how to think ahead. They learn how to build something for themselves instead of waiting for somebody else to build it for them. They understand that being at the bottom ain't about strength or weakness, it's about knowledge. The second they start thinking different, moving different, making smarter decisions, everything changes. But most people don't make that switch. They stay stuck in the same cycle. They do what they're told, follow the same rules, chase the same dreams that ain't never been real to begin with. They fight battles that ain't worth fighting. They burn themselves out, proving a point that don't matter. They waste years being loyal to people who wouldn't blink twice before cutting them loose. And in the end, they got nothing to show for it. Just another name, just another forgotten soldier in a war they never even understood. The ones who win, they don't let that happen. They see things for what they are. They stop lying to themselves. They stop believing in fairy tales. They learn how to move like the ones at the top. They stop reacting and start strategizing. They stop chasing and start attracting. They stop hoping and start taking. That's the difference between the ones who make it and the ones who don't. Every single move matters. Every single choice has weight. The people who realize that, they move different. They wake up and they don't just ask, what do I need to do today? They ask, what's my next move? They don't just work hard, they work smart. They don't just play the game, they learn how to control the board. They make sure that everything they do is pushing them forward, bringing them closer to real power, real success, real freedom. Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. Freedom, power, control. The ability to move how you want, when you want, without asking for permission. That's the real goal. That's what separates the ones at the top from the ones stuck at the bottom. It ain't luck. It ain't fate. It's mindset. It's discipline. It's the ability to see the bigger picture and move accordingly. And the ones who can't, the ones who refuse to think, refuse to change, refuse to adapt, they stay where they are. They keep running, keep working, keep sweating for somebody else. They stay in the trenches while the generals sit back and collect their rewards. They fight battles that ain't theirs, break their backs for causes that don't serve them, waste their lives chasing dreams that were never meant for them. That's the truth. The ugly, brutal truth. Some people hear it and get mad. Some people hear it and get motivated. Some people hear it and do nothing. But the ones who understand, the ones who really listen, they change. They shift. They move different. And when that happens, when the game finally clicks in their head, there's no stopping. Because once somebody learns how to think like a general, they never go back to being a soldier.